Welcome to another episode of Preferred Walk-On, PFF's college football show. I'm your host, Max Chadwick, alongside my co-host, Dalton Wasserman, with our Week 10 preview. There are 5 games this week between ranked teams, so we are previewing all 5 of those games, and all 5 of those games have some pretty massive playoff implications as well, Dalton. So we have an absolutely loaded show for everyone today.
Oh, totally. I mean, we got the first rankings last night, which we're about to get into, but we're getting into a point every week where there's going to be a handful of elimination games every week. I think we're only down to about 13 or 14 teams that even have a pulse in the playoff race, and every one of these games we go over is going to have massive implications.
Absolutely. So speaking of those college football playoff rankings, let's do a quick segment real quick on our reaction to the first college football playoff rankings. And you told me before the show, Dalton, that you are pretty cranky about the initial college football playoff rankings. What is your main takeaway after seeing the top 25 last night?
I honestly don't understand the top 7 at all. I think when we did this on Monday, we went with the idea of who do we think are the best teams in order, right? And that makes sense. Putting Ohio State 1 makes a ton of sense to me. Okay, yeah. I get it. They have the two big wins. Although when they keep saying that at Notre Dame is the best win of any team, I don't believe that Ridiculous. One bit. Washington's win over Oregon's better. Florida State's win over LSU is honestly better. LSU would beat Notre Dame.
Texas over Alabama is better. Yeah.
Texas, yeah. So when they kept talking about that, no. Ohio State has it because they have 2 really good wins, dominated Penn State. I'm totally cool with Ohio State at 1. We mentioned that Monday. If you're going on, there are really 2 roads to go about this. One is, who do you think are the best teams? In which case, I think it makes sense that Georgia and Michigan would be 1 and 2. Okay, in some order, and then go with the rest, like we did. Or you could go with the resumes, and you could put Ohio State 1, and then I think, honestly, from there, you have to put Florida State and Washington 2 and 3 in some order, and Georgia, Michigan 4 or 5.
Yep.
Because Georgia, they've blown out. Luke Corrigan last night? Yeah, mentioned. Okay, so they beat up Kentucky and Florida. Those aren't great teams. And then he specifically mentioned Florida State playing tight with Boston College. Every team except Michigan has some tight scare mixed in there.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Florida State gets jobbed because, they played one tight game on the road with Boston College. Okay, every team except Michigan. Do we not remember Georgia trailing South Carolina at halftime, or not taking the lead on Auburn until the last 3 minutes, or Washington the last few weeks? I just don't. Even Ohio State playing tight games. So they think the best win in the country is beating Notre Dame at the buzzer when they were a man short. I don't. You can either decide who the best teams are.
Yep.
Okay. Or you can go with the resumes. But they tried to straddle this line between the 2, and I'm not in favor of it at all. Then even you get to 6 and 7. So then we go resume 1, eye test 2 and 3. I guess resume undefeated 4 and 5. And then you went back to the eye test 6 and 7 with Oregon over Texas.
Yeah.
And I know doing what they did at Utah is impressive, but what other big time win does Oregon have? And is anything they've done, because we talked about it last week, under the hood, Utah, they were playing way, way over their heads.
Yeah.
Okay, way over their heads, getting away with turnovers, getting away with horrible pass protection, backup quarterbacks, all that stuff. You mean to tell me that's not eye test? Flipping back to the eye test, when we go with, because we both had Texas at 6, how is Texas beating Alabama in Alabama and clearly looking like the better team, not better than Oregon beating Utah?
Easily.
I don't get that. I get it was by 30. I get it. It's. I feel like if both of the games happened last week instead of Texas beating Bama in week 2, they would be 6.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at that Oregon schedule. I have Oregon at 8 in my rankings because you look at what they've done this year. Yes, the Utah win was impressive, and doing it in Utah is impressive. But that's their only win over a currently top 25 team. Oregon's second best win of the season is either 4-4 Colorado or 4-4 Washington State. That's it for what they've done this season. Meanwhile, Texas has beaten Alabama, which you can make an argument might be the best win of the entire season in Tuscaloosa, And they beat Kansas, who's number 21 right now in the college football playoff rankings. Alabama, meanwhile, has beaten. You look at Tennessee, who's number 17 in the ranking. Ole Miss is number 10 in the ranking. So it's like you combine those two. I think Texas's best win and Alabama's best win is better than Oregon's best win, which is Utah. And then Texas's second best win and Alabama's second best win blows Oregon's out of the water. So that's why I think Oregon should have been 8 in the ranking. I know you disagree with me in that one, but 6, I agree with you, man. It is ridiculous. I think you nailed it on the head. I think the inconsistency, which is something that we always talk about, I feel like, with the college football playoff rankings, how inconsistent they are. And you see the resume versus eye test thing is wildly inconsistent. I mean, you look at Georgia and Michigan. I mean, you look at ESPN's strength of record metric, which is not a PFF metric, but theirs. Georgia's 7th in the country in terms of resume. Michigan's 9th in the country. So if you're going purely off resume, you could argue for some one-loss teams over them. So I don't like that. Another one I wanted to shout out, I understand they were ineligible to be ranked. So it's not the playoff committee's fault that they're not ranked. Or maybe it is, honestly, for making these rules. But James Madison is unranked because they're not eligible to play in the postseason. You can make an argument this is a top 15 team in the country right now with what they've done this year. They're 8-0. I think they deserve to be ranked in at least the top 20, and they're not ranked here. Air Force, I think, is too low as well. Liberty is still unranked. They're 8-0 on the season. I think that's bad. So, yeah, it was a pretty interesting first top 25 for the College Football Playoff Committee. But listen, as angry as we can get about these, they don't matter until December. And then we'll finally get the final ranking. We can see if we'll argue about that. But right now, I think going purely off resume is a little too much. For me, that's why we have Georgia and Michigan number 1 and 2, because I think they're far and away the 2 best teams in the country. But we'll see, and a lot will shake out over the course of the season, including a Georgia game this weekend that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But like I mentioned, we have 5 games, Dalton, between ranked teams. All of them have huge, huge implications. I know we did a 7-game show a few weeks ago. I would say these 5 games might be better than those 7 games that we talked about a few weeks ago. So I'm excited. First one we're talking about is number 23 Kansas State at number 7 Texas, 12 p.m. Eastern time on Fox. And the big question, honestly, is Quinn Ewers once again going to be out? Because Pete Thamel reported that his shoulder injury is about 2 to 4 weeks, which means there's a slight chance he can suit up against Kansas State, but honestly, he probably won't with that grade 2 AC joint sprain in his throwing shoulder. So Malik Murphy will probably get a second career start. He had a 60.9 passing grade last week, 3 big-time throws, 2 ugly turnover-worthy plays. So I just don't think Texas can really have a roller coaster performance under center like that, Dalton, if they want a chance to keep their playoff hopes alive in this one.
No, I totally agree, and we've talked about Texas, and I think for the moment, if you have Murphy or Manning or another backup quarterback in there, Texas, they are what they are, right? They're going to run it down your throat with Brooks. They're going to play good defense. They're going to keep the game in the box, and they're going to score somewhere in the mid to high 20s, depending on who they're playing. They're just going to need to play complementary football, and the rest of their team is going to have to carry this thing. Murphy didn't show us a whole lot last week. He didn't have to. We talked about the advantages that Texas had in the trenches against BYU. That showed up. They really have to show us how well-rounded and actually, to be honest, they've been that well-rounded all year. Outside of the Alabama game, Ewers has been more solid than spectacular. So they're kind of used to this, but it's getting stressed to a greater extent. And it's really going to come to a head this week, especially on their defense against Kansas State, who's raging hot right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there a specific matchup, Dalton, that you're really looking forward to in this game?
Yeah, I was looking into, so Kansas State's been hot. They've scored 40 points a game over their last 3. And a few weeks ago, they got really, I don't want to say embarrassed, but they looked really bad on a Friday night against Oklahoma State. And what it came down to was their passing game just failed them. Dropping back too much. Will Howard's a very good play-action passer, but the drop-back game is not their game, right? And I imagine they went into a meeting after that game and said, how can we fix this passing game? And the conclusion they came to is, actually, we're not gonna fix it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start playing our second quarterback, Avery Johnson, who's a wicked athlete, and we're just gonna turn up the turbo on this run game. Okay, the last 3 weeks, Will Howard's only taken 45 dropbacks. in the last 3 weeks. They're only throwing the ball 15 to 20 times a game, couple for Johnson here and there, but they have just totally turned into this team that centers everything around the run game, and it is as nasty a run game as you can get. And over the last 3 weeks, they're the second highest graded offense in the country. They put in Howard for a couple drives. They put in Johnson for a drive or two, and Howard can run the ball too. He's a good athlete too. But they have designed this thing, and they could already run the ball well with the backs. But what Avery Johnson has brought to them, coming in, in part-time duty, is he's created more space in this run game. You see it with Giddens and Treshaun Ward. Like when they just kind of run straight ahead with Howard, traditionally it looks like good but not great. The element of quarterback run that's been added to this offense, along with everything they do schematically, they run power, they run counter, they run options, they run jet sweeps. They're all over the place with this run game. They lead the Power 5 in the last 3 weeks in quarterback rush attempts. All right, they have 50. All right, the next closest team in design quarterback rush attempts in the last 3 weeks has 34. Wow. All right, so you've got read option, you've got even just straight quarterback, just sweeps to the edges. They motion all over the place. They cause a ton of problems. We talk about there's some coaches that if they could, they would run the ball every single play. Right now, at Kansas State, that's what they're doing. They are going to run it down your throat till you are out of gas, and they're going to keep doing it. And just what Johnson and even Howard to an extent have brought, creating space, freezing defenders, and then they use so many pulling linemen, Cooper Beebe and the guys up front pulling like crazy, power, counter. There's so much misdirection, along with just a really good, powerful offensive line that can mow you down. The combination of those two things makes their run game absolutely lethal. And I think Texas, look, they have the 5th best run D against gap schemes. Okay, and Kansas State runs more gap scheme runs. You think about running straight ahead, running power, running counter, those sorts of things. But Texas hasn't seen a ton of it. Actually, the 4th fewest reps against it in the Power 5. So you've got, if you take out their game against Rice, they're a little more like above average than elite. This is going to be a major, major issue for Texas. All right. And they also have the 2nd worst EPA per play against quarterback runs. So all the combination of all of these things, Giddens, Ward, Howard, and Avery Johnson, who he looks tall and lanky and skinny and all. He is blazing fast. When I tell you, if he gets a crease, he's gone. He is gone. Yeah, the spacing in their run game right now, and how disciplined you have to be against Kansas State. This is going to be the ultimate test for Texas's front 7.
Dude, Avery Johnson. So Avery Johnson, by the way, true freshman. He was a top 10 quarterback recruit coming out of high school in that Arch Manning class. So he's a true freshman doing this. So he's the quarterback of the future for Kansas State. He ran a 4.54 in the 40 in high school. Like, this is a really good athlete, like you mentioned. He jumped about 37 inches in the vertical as well. On 3 Sports, his comparison that I kind of love coming out was Pat White. You remember Pat White, electric quarterback at West Virginia. That's kind of what Avery Johnson has been like. So I love that, he's the quarterback of the future for Kansas State, and he's the quarterback right now for them as well, really making some big plays for them while Will Howard is still kind of the starting quarterback. So, yeah, great breakdown. I love Cooper Beebe versus Devondre Sweat will be a matchup to watch. Sweat has been one of the best D tackles in the league in the nation this year. Cooper Beebe, who we interviewed, by the way, I think might be the best guard in the country 2 years running now. He really could be a first-round pick if he keeps this up. I don't know if you saw the pancake block that went viral in the last week against, I think, Houston. He destroyed a Houston linebacker. And it went viral. I tweeted it out if you want to see it. But Cooper Beebe, man, has been on fire. I still don't think Cooper Beebe has not allowed a sack since the 2020 season. And he played left tackle, right tackle, left guard for Kansas State. He plays all over the offensive line. He's still an elite offensive lineman, man. So check out the interview with him. He's a terrific kid as well. Really funny guy, honestly. But you mentioned the run game for Kansas State and why Texas needs to stop that in this game. That's the same thing on the other side of the ball, man. My biggest matchup I'm watching is, can Kansas State stop Jonathan Brooks, who has been one of the best backs in college football this past season? He's right now is the number 1 running back on PFF's 2024 NFL Draft Big Board, which is constructed by Trevor Sikkema, our lead draft analyst. He also leads all Power 5 running backs with 58 forced missed tackles this year. So even after losing Bijan Robinson, even after losing Roschon Johnson, they still have one of the best running backs in the country. And his backup, C.J. Baxter, was the number 1 running back recruit coming out of high school. He's a true freshman right now. So Texas's running back dynasty, I mean, there are a lot of other schools are in the running for running back U, obviously, but Texas, what they've been doing the last few years, man, has been really incredible at the running back position. Kansas State, meanwhile, is 97th in the country in team run defense grade, right about 70.2. Also, they're allowing over 5 yards per attempt, which is the 9th most in the Power 5. So I think they need to stack the box, man, take the game out of Jonathan Brooks' hands, put it in Malik Murphy's inexperienced hands, and see what the redshirt freshman can do, man. Because I think that's the way Kansas State can win this game is, 1, by having a dominant run game of themselves, and 2, of stopping Texas's run game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what it's going to come down to on both sides. You've got two teams who are really trying to avoid throwing the ball. So whoever has more rushing yards in this game, whoever wins time of possession, whoever can finish drives, and I think get themselves in good spots on early downs and sustain drives, keep yourself in 3rd and short. Kansas State, both of these teams are explosive in the run game too. It might just come down to who shakes a couple tackles and makes some big plays. Over the last 3 weeks, Kansas State leads the country with 35 explosive runs. I mean, they are when I tell you they are creating creases and getting after it and getting vertical. That, like I said, they have 4 different guys who can really run the ball, including Will Howard, who are a big time threat running the ball. You mentioned Brooks and Baxter. You're going to see some big, nasty football being played by these two teams. I think the team, obviously, we've said this before in these running kind of games, who's getting ahead early. You got two teams trying to avoid their quarterback. Who needs to throw the ball in the 4th quarter and who can avoid it? It's going to be a big thing, whoever gets out ahead early and gets in their rhythm. The one thing you mentioned, T'Vondre Sweat, the one thing I do like also for Kansas State in this game and their run game is the way their run game is designed kind of takes defensive tackles out of it, because as much as they pull and get off tackle and do some things, they really just kind of wash the rest of that down inside. So Sweat, he's going to have to get some really, really quick penetration here if he wants to make an impact, because Kansas State, they don't really line up and run just right, zone right at you. Yeah. Take Oklahoma's running game and the way that Texas could kind of at times control that because they just run right at you. Kansas State doesn't really do that. They're actually very well equipped to avoid him and make their linebackers, make second level guys make reads and beat them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, one of the best one-on-one matchups of the entire weekend, maybe the entire season, is Cooper Beebe against T'Vondre Sweat. So if 50 is lining up against T'Vondre Sweat on a lot of reps, you better tune in for that, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. But ultimately, Dalton, who are you going with in this big Big 12 game?
There is something about Kansas State I like. I think we know what to expect from Texas right now, especially with a backup in there. I believe firmly they are going to find some way between Brooks and maybe a couple play action hits to Worthy and Whittington and that they're going to find their way to, I think, to 24, maybe 27 points, something like that. But K-State's raging hot, and I just like that they have found who they are. Right. I think earlier in the year, they got in a shootout with Missouri trying to throw the ball, and they just got beat, obviously, by a 60-plus yard field goal. Oklahoma State, they threw 3 interceptions, and I think they just understand that their run game, their O-line, 2 good backs, 2 good running quarterbacks can make big plays. And it's not traditional, at least not nowadays. I should say it's not modern, but they get it done. And they're not just a team that lines up and just runs one play like Oregon State lines up, right? And they run 2 plays over and over and over. There's a ton of diversity in this run game. And Texas's run defense is essentially T'Vondre Sweat is great and everything else is sound. But they have issues defending the quarterback run, albeit in a small sample. Dylan Gabriel got some on him. Jason Bean had a couple runs on him. Jalen Milroe. I'm telling you, maybe other than Milroe, Avery Johnson is as good an athlete as any of those guys, if not better. He actually, you brought up Pat White. I just think of Kansas State. It reminds me a lot of, like, remember Colin Klein?
Yep.
He's not as big as Colin Klein. He's a little thinner and probably a little faster, but same idea of, like, hey, we've got this wicked athletic quarterback, and we're not afraid to show it. I think Kansas State's run game, I think they're blazing hot right now. If they just avoid early mistakes, and if you see them have early success, especially on first down, I think Kansas State can go in there and pull this off. If Quinn Ewers was playing, I might lean the other way, but that might be the equalizer, because the one thing I could tell, you could tell Texas had a distinct advantage was at quarterback, right? Will Howard, occasionally good throw, especially in play action, but it's just he's not going to carry you. Quinn Ewers for stretches can carry you, and if he's not in there and it's Murphy, this is a dead even game to me, and I'm going to take Kansas State 31-27.
Woo! I love it. The upset pick. I'm going with Texas in this game. Although, the two turnover-worthy plays for Murphy were ugly, but Steve Sarkisian in his press conference kind of broke them down a little bit. The interception was kind of on the receiver. The fumble was a little bit on the offensive line as well. Don't get me wrong, Malik Murphy had some up and down plays in that game. Don't get me wrong. But I do think he's got something more in the tank than what he showed in that game against BYU. I think Texas will pull this out at home even without Quinn Ewers. I think Jonathan Brooks can really take advantage of that weak Kansas State run defense right now. I got 28-23. The Longhorns riding Brooks to victory, keeping the playoff hopes alive. I think Texas stays alive in the college football playoff race with a victory over Kansas State. You mentioned Missouri before, who beat Kansas State earlier in the year in that honestly thrilling game. Missouri is the next team we're talking about, Dalton. Number 12, Missouri, at number 2, Georgia, 3:30 p.m. on CBS. And it feels a little bit weird seeing that number 2 next to Georgia's name when they've been number 1 the entire season and have not lost a game since the 2021 season when they lost to Bryce Young in the SEC championship game. Now, really, the storyline is, can Georgia reclaim number 1? Because like we mentioned at the top, the only reason why Georgia is not number 1 in the country right now is their resume. They still have not played a top 30 team in the country, according to PFF's power rankings. Now, you have 3 straight top 20 opponents in Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. And you're going to probably be without Brock Bowers again in this game, your superstar tight end. So Georgia can really show the committee, hey, even without our superstar, we're playing the toughest team we played all season. This could be the time for them to say, hey, we deserve to be number 1 again. We deserve to be over Ohio State in next week's college football playoff ranking. But Dalton, what is the matchup that you're really looking forward to seeing in this game?
I was surprised actually to see how similar these two teams are. You've got two teams, both of their offensive lines are in the top 8 of grading. Both of their quarterbacks are incredibly underrated. They're both playing. We've got like the list of like 5 or 6 Heisman level guys, and these are pretty much the next 2 guys playing right below them. Carson Beck's been really, really good, gets the ball out of his hands. Brady Cook, we've been talking about Brady Cook all year, and I'm going to dig in on that because that's about to be the matchup. Two teams that cover really well. Missouri's got the second best group of corners in the country right now. Georgia's secondary is nasty. Malachi Starks and those guys. Yeah, the one thing I'm going to look at in this game, which team can get a pass rush going? Okay, you've got 2 quarterbacks that are in the top 13 of clean pocket passing grade. Okay, they're both really good if they're back there and left to scan the field and just make the throws they want to make. Okay, now Missouri, their pass rush grade is a little bit better, and they don't have any individual guys that make things happen, but they blitz a lot. They give you a lot of different looks, and they create a ton of unblocked sacks through stunts and blitzes and just weird stuff that fools offensive lines. Georgia's offensive line, it's great, and it's going to be put to the task this week. Now, Brady Cook, on the other hand, all right, you're talking about if he stays clean with their receivers and Luther Burden and Marquise Johnson, Theo Weiss, and these guys, they got a real chance, and he's going to have to be that good because Cody Schrader, I like him a lot. It just doesn't feel like it's going to be the Cody Schrader game to me, right? We've talked about Georgia's success against running backs. Brady Cook is going to, if Missouri wins this game, it'll be because they pass protect well and they keep Cook clean for at least 75%. and then Luther Burden's the best player on the field.
Right.
But it's going to start with pass protection. All right, Georgia blitzes a decent amount too, but we've talked about before the pass rush is really the one weakness on this Georgia team. Now they've picked up, I believe it's 10 or so sacks in the last 2 or 3 weeks, 10 or 12 sacks in the last 2. It's picked up a bit, but it's just not dominant. They have not found any dominant pass rusher. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, dude, they're 82nd right now in pressure rate. Like, it's insane. Yeah. Like, it's not even like this is like, oh, it's like a top 30 pass rush, but it's not the elite ones we saw in the last 2 years. No, it's bad. It's a below average pass rush they have right now.
And that's with some improvement in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Before that, it was in the 90s, I believe. Like, the first 6 games was in the 90s. It's not been great. I would bring pressure. I would not send 4 and let Cook sit back there, because I'll tell you too, he had a knee injury he was dealing with earlier in the year. In the last couple weeks, you see the tape, his mobility is back. It's going to be a problem if he's clean back there, and either A, Burden's running through the intermediate parts of the field, or B, Cook takes off and runs. Because Georgia is susceptible to some quarterback running, and Cook is starting to run again. They've gotten a little more like conservative, efficient sort of since the LSU game. Like last week, he only threw 1 touchdown, but they got off running the ball. Schrader had a really, really good game, and they'll still need some balance in their offensive line to play really well. But I think the keys to this game, especially on Missouri's side, is pass protection. And they're a good pass protecting team, right? Javon Foster, we've been begging for him to go in the first round and things like that. But this game, it'll be at a premium. Because you don't want to be throwing the Georgia secondary under pressure, right? And I think he's going to, if Missouri is to win this game, he's going to be protected well, and Luther Burden will be the best player on the field.
You stole the exact matchup from me. So my big matchup, besides the pass rush, I think is a great point by you, that Georgia, yes, they need to get after Brady Cook in this game. And it's going to be hard because Missouri, right now, 10th lowest pressure rate allowed in the Power 5 this season. Missouri's offensive line has been great. My matchup is Missouri's passing attack, meaning Brady Cook and those receivers, obviously Luther Burden third at the forefront of it, against Georgia's secondary, man. You see that graphic right there. Missouri, 7th in the country, averaging 9.5 yards per passing play. Georgia, 3rd in the country, averaging 4.5 yards allowed per passing play. So you got strength on strength, man. We mentioned how the pass rush for Georgia is well below average. The secondary is still elite. This is still an elite secondary. Malachi Starks, the safety there, is probably the best safety in America right now. He has really, really been good. He's the only safety in the country who has a top 15 coverage grade and a top 15 run defense grade. But you mentioned, man, Brady Cook, 20 big-time throws this season. That's tied for 3rd among all quarterbacks in the country for a guy that was not throwing the ball well downfield in the past. Now, he has been incredible throwing the ball downfield, and a lot of it has to do with Luther Burden III, who leads the Power 5 with nearly 4 yards per route run. Right now, 3.92. And he has 525 yards after the catch this year, which leads the Power 5 as well. So this is a big matchup for me, Dalton, is whether or not Georgia's secondary can limit the big plays from Brady Cook, Luther Burden III, and those other group of receivers that Missouri's got. Because unless they send blitzes a lot, I don't really think Georgia's pass rush is going to be able to get home as well with just 4 men rushing the passer.
Yeah, and I think they should dial it up. And you mentioned Cook with the 20 big-time throws, 16 of them from a clean pocket. That's the second most in the Power 5 behind Drake May. Only Drake May has more from a clean pocket. So there's a lot of elements. Look, if I was Missouri, I would go tempo. I wouldn't huddle up and let Georgia get in all those blitz packages because they're not great rushing with 4. I would go tempo, get the ball out quick, make some of those yards after the catch happen. And if Georgia decides they're going to start blitzing in quick situations and go man-to-man. We saw it last week against South Carolina. And really every week. When teams go man-to-man against Missouri, they're going to throw over the top. Yep. They're going to do it. They're going to take shots with Burden and Johnson. They got 2 of them last week with Burden that were really, especially the touchdown early was a huge play, probably the biggest play of the game against South Carolina. They're going to, if you show them press man, they're going to go over the top. If you show them zone, they are so, I'm telling you, I want Kirby Moore to win the Broyles Award. Because I just can't believe how unbelievably well he's coached Brady Cook after what we saw from him for the most part last year. He's seeing the coverages and he's throwing the ball to the right spots as long as he's clean. Schematically, they could cause Georgia a ton of problems. They just have to pass protect. And I'm not at all saying they're bad at it. It just has to happen. Now, I do think Georgia's answer is to ratchet it up. Go get him. Go get him. Make him rush a little bit. Because usually right now when you blitz him, Cook's going to take off running. He's not going to throw through it. Go get him. Because, Cook's a good athlete, but I don't think he's the type of supreme athlete who's just going to run away from Georgia defenders, right? Not like say, Jalen Milroe or, if they see Jaden Daniels eventually or something like that. I think Georgia should ratchet it up. I really do. Come out the first 3 or 4 plays blitzing. Go ahead and do it. And if they have an answer for it, then adjust off of it. But I would go get them.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year, Dalton, Missouri was really the only team to really make it close with Georgia. Unranked Missouri lost to Georgia 26-22. It was at Missouri, that game as well. That was really the only close game besides the Ohio State playoff game that Georgia played all season. So what will happen in this one? Do you think Missouri will make this a game, and do you think the Tigers could upset the Bulldogs here?
This is a tough one. I think this is the 2 SEC games this week are really hard to pick. Yeah. I think it's a travesty. It's an absolute travesty that Georgia's a 15.5-point favorite in this game. I don't understand it at all. You mentioned the game last year. Missouri deserves every bit of that number 12 ranking. All right, yep. Offensively, they're an elite. I cannot name 10 better offenses right now than this team. They can cause Georgia. This is going to be a fun game. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs.
Okay.
And I think there's one distinct difference between the two teams, and that's going to be Georgia up front on their O-line, especially in the running game, against Missouri's front seven. Okay, in the pass rush, Missouri, they can create pressure, schematically, stunts, blitzes, that stuff. There's not a ton of answer in the run game. Okay, the run game, they kind of line up and play it safe. They can really cover, they can rush the passer, but it's based on passing and stopping the pass. It would really benefit Missouri to get ahead in this game early. If Georgia has the same success just running straight at Missouri the same way they did last week against Florida, because in Florida they don't run fit well and they get overpowered. The entire basis of what happened last week with Georgia and Florida is just their offensive line blew away Florida's front seven.
Yeah.
Okay. Missouri, that's a problem for Missouri. It's really not great. Their linebackers rank 112th in grading. And that's a real problem because Georgia's line can get on the second level. If Georgia takes the ball early and they just start running it down Missouri's throat with a lot of success, they're going to have major problems because I think they can cover. McConkey and Lovett were great last week. I think they can really cover, and I think they could cause problems with the blitz game if they get Georgia in 3rd and long. But that's such a big if. You have to. Georgia's foundation is still the run game. Dejon Edwards. I think that's going to be the difference. They're very patient. They wait for their moments to strike with big plays, but their run game is what sets the tone. I think it's going to be a good game. I've seen no reason that this should be a 15-point spread. I'm going to take Georgia 34-26, and I think Missouri's going to put a scare into them again. If Missouri wins this game, which wouldn't shock me that much, the stars, Cook, Burton, the corners, the guys we know about. I think Georgia is the safer bet here with their O-line and their run game.
I think so too. I think, and that's surprising that Missouri's linebackers grade out that low because I actually had Missouri as a top 10 linebacker unit entering the season in the country because I love Tyron Hopper, who's really been disappointing this year. Chad Bailey has actually played really well, who I really liked before, but he's been banged up a lot this season. So that's unfortunate that they're not playing as well. Tyron Hopper especially has not lived up to the hype that he really had. Missouri's secondary I like a lot too. Chris Abrams-Drain, we talked about before, he's had a great year. Ennis Rakestraw Jr., the other corner, has had a really good year. Their safeties are solid as well. But I agree with you. I think Carson Beck, man, is... You mentioned how Brady Cook's criminally underrated, and I agree with you. Carson Beck might be the most underrated quarterback in the country right now. He has the second best passing grade in America behind only Michael Penix Jr. And Carson Beck is like almost nowhere to be found on Heisman lists right now. I don't think he deserves to be a top 5 candidate yet, but I'd be hard-pressed to not see him at 6 or 7 probably. He showed a lot in that Florida game, man. I know Florida's secondary is well below average, but without Brock Bowers, it looked like business as usual for Carson Beck. 315 yards, was finding Ladd McConkey. I have really been impressed by him. I think I agree with you. The Georgia run game could be a big factor in this one. 34-24 is my final score. I do think Missouri will be able to get some big plays with Burden, but also that Georgia secondary is elite, man. And I know the pass rush is going to struggle probably for Georgia unless they dial it up and blitz heavy, but I still think Georgia is going to come out on top in this one, and they'll create a compelling case to the College Football Playoff Committee and say, hey, we deserve to be number 1 in next week's ranking. So Georgia 34, Missouri 24 is my predicted final score. Next game we're talking about, another 3:30 game, is number 9 Oklahoma at number 22 Oklahoma State, which is at 3:30 on ABC. The big storyline, Dalton, is honestly kind of a sad one. This is the final Bedlam game for the foreseeable future. And I did some research. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State have played every season since 1910. 1910. It's been 113 straight years that Oklahoma and Oklahoma State have played every single year. That's the tied for the second longest uninterrupted rivalry in FBS history, only behind Wisconsin, Minnesota, which has played every year since 1907, and NC State, Wake Forest is also tied with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State at 1910. So 113 straight years, but this is the last one. Because after this, Oklahoma leaves the Big 12 for the SEC after the season. The non-conference schedules are already pretty much locked up until like the 2030s. So they're not going to be playing each other for a while after this. So this rivalry is going to go out with a bang with this game, because I think it will be a very, very exciting game. But it is a little sad, though, that this is the last Bedlam game that we're getting in one of the most storied rivalries in college football history.
Yeah, especially in the last 15, 20 years or so, we've gotten some circus games out of these two teams. And honestly, I think we're going to get another one. You've got Oklahoma now trying to save their season every week. You've got Oklahoma State, who is raging hot. Ollie Gordon's going crazy, got almost 1,000 yards in the last 5 weeks. There's a lot of weird. There's a lot of weird in this game, because you've got one team who suddenly looks shaky and one team who suddenly, just basically out of nowhere, shot themselves up to number 22 in the country. I think it's gonna be Bedlam for maybe one last time for a while, but this might be the hardest game of the week to pick, to be honest with you, because I don't know. Oklahoma and Texas have this similar feel to me, where I'm like, there's cracks. There's cracks, and we saw it against Kansas, but this is a weird one. We'll get into it, but I think it's going to be as wild as any Bedlam game we've seen recently.
I hope it is, man, because like I said, it's sad that this rivalry is ending. Mike Gundy is very not happy that this rivalry is ending with Oklahoma leaving for the SEC, but hopefully it goes out with a bang, man. And Oklahoma, like you mentioned, if they lose again, they're out. They can't lose again. And Oklahoma State's a dangerous, dangerous team right now. So this is going to be a really, really fun game. What is the matchup that you're really excited to watch in this game, though?
I think more than a matchup. Well, kind of a matchup. I'll get into it, but I just think the spotlight's on Dillon Gabriel, man. Yeah. I kept hearing about all of this Heisman talk and these numbers and that, and Oklahoma's back and all this stuff, and then he comes out last week, 14 for 19 with a $171 and a pick six and a 51 passing grade. And if I take out screens, all right, and this is something I'm going to get into, 7 of 12 without screens for 137 and the pick six. There's just, and they run Oklahoma. Look, this is life. They run the 5th most screens in the country.
Yeah.
All right. And in Big 12 play, you've got 5 games now against real competition, not Tulsa or whatever they were playing before. 5 games. Take out the screens. Okay. He's got a 74 passing grade. He's completing 59% of his passes. He's got 5 big-time throws and 6 turnover-worthy plays. Oklahoma, to me, and I know everyone's got, well, Dillon Gabriel and the numbers and this, he just doesn't make like that many impressive big time. I think he's good, but I don't. When we talk about those other Heisman level guys, right? When we talk about Penix and Caleb and Bo Nix and these other guys, I don't think Dillon Gabriel's just in that group.
No,
and I know everyone was trying to put him in that group because they were undefeated, but Does Oklahoma, be honest, do they have a single superstar on their offense?
No. I don't think
they do. They line up, and they run their system, and they run it really fast, and they hope to just burn teams out. And they're going to execute their stuff. But it feels like any sort of adversity outside of, okay, they had to put together a last-minute drive against Texas, which was great. I won't take that drive away from him. But he just doesn't elevate. He doesn't make huge throws. He doesn't elevate anything beyond the system. And I just wonder now how long you can keep doing this. They don't change anything schematically. There's not really any adjustments or layers to their offense. They come out and run the same stuff every week. So the big thing last week, the pick six that put them down 7-0, I think he was rattled. And I think the coaching staff was rattled, knowing they're behind and only letting him throw 19 times the whole game when he's supposed to be your superstar guy. And now you got an Oklahoma State team who's figured themselves out in coverage over the last 4 weeks. They have the 8th best coverage grade in the country. I talk about non-screens, right? They're only allowing right now under 53% of non-screens to be completed. Oof. This is going to be an issue. If they have to make real throws right now into this Oklahoma State secondary, who's got 7 picks in the last 4 weeks, they're going to have a problem. Because they just, I think even a bit like Kansas State, it might sound funny with Dillon Gabriel, but Oklahoma doesn't want to just drop back and throw the football. It's not their game. And if they get into that sort of game against, again, a raging hot team who right now is throwing the counter punches to what Oklahoma wants to do, I'd be very, very worried if Oklahoma fell behind or if they got in a similar game as they did last week.
Yeah. I misspoke. I think there is one superstar in Oklahoma's offense, and that is Jeff Lebby, the offensive coordinator. I think he's done a really good job. I think he's done a good job of elevating what he's had, because you look at the offensive grading for Oklahoma, they're 19th in the Power 5 in offensive grading, which is solid. But they're 7th in the Power 5 in EPA per play, which means that really the players aren't doing much to elevate this offense. It's him scheming it up beautifully and making, putting them in positions to win. So I think Jeff Lebby, we mentioned the Broyles Award before, he might be a finalist, honestly. I think he's done a great job with this offense, especially when Brent Venables is obviously handling the defensive side of the ball. But I agree with you, man. We didn't have Dillon Gabriel in our top 5 Heisman candidates. I cannot tell you how many Oklahoma fans were in my mentions pissed at me that we didn't have Dillon Gabriel in there. So it almost was a little. I don't ever root against teams or players, obviously, but it was a little vindication when Kansas beat them. It was like, okay, we could stop with the Dillon Gabriel Heisman for now. But the matchup for me, Dalton, on the other side of the ball, there's one player for Oklahoma State, and there's one player in college football who is the hottest player in college football right now. The hottest player. That is Ollie Gordon. Like you mentioned, 1,087 rushing yards, that leads the nation. In the first 3 games of the season, this guy had 19 total carries. 19. They were not using him at all. Now, all of a sudden, he leads the nation because of what he's done in the last 5 weeks. Mentioned it, 978 yards, 553 in the last 2 games. It is unbelievable what this guy has done. He should be the favorite for the Doak Walker Award right now, man. And one stat that I love looking at is after contact, obviously. In the last 2 weeks, the leading Power 5 running backs over the last 2 weeks, Ollie Gordon, obviously number 1, 553 yards. Number 2 is Ollie Gordon after contact with 315 yards. And then number 3 is Kyle Robichaux from Boston College with 277 yards. So Ollie Gordon leads the Power 5 over the last 2 weeks in rushing yards, and then his yards after contact are more than any other running back's rushing yards over the last 2 weeks. So he's been incredible. However, Oklahoma's run defense is elite, man. 90.1 run defense grade, 8th in the Power 5. Oklahoma also leads the country with 76 tackles for loss or no gain this season. So they've done a really, really good job in run defense. I know Danny Stutzman, their star linebacker, got hurt in that Kansas game. Hopefully he's able to go in this one. But the big question on the other side of the ball, besides the Dillon Gabriel when Oklahoma's on offense, when Oklahoma State's on offense, Oklahoma really just has to focus in on Ollie Gordon, because otherwise Oklahoma State's passing game has kind of been well below average the entirety of this season.
Yeah, and I think it's actually the stress test now for Oklahoma's run D. I think there's a lot of numbers for Oklahoma on both sides that are tilted from an easy first 3 games, right? They didn't really play anyone out of conference. You look at, they've given up, though, 155 rushing yards in 5 straight games, and that's 225 last week against Kansas. I think I think they're a good run defense. I think the grading might be a little tilted. If you look at them just in Big 12 play, they're closer to solid than elite. I think there's a chance here for Gordon, and I'm gonna be real with you. If you give him chances, you give him a lane. Good luck. I'll be honest with you. He 28 explosive runs in the last 5 weeks. That's you're ripping off almost 6 explosives a week. That's dangerous. And you're talking, I think it was a 70-ish yarder last week against Cincinnati. This guy.
That's 10. That's for the audience at home. Is 10+ yard runs, right? Explosive runs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 28 of them in the last 5 weeks, which obviously is the most in the country. Everything he's doing is the most in the country right now. Everything, but no, if he gets a few lanes and he picks up some first downs early, they want to avoid most of their passing except for deep play action shots, right? Generally down the sideline, much better. Oklahoma State looks more comfortable throwing outside the numbers. If they get one-on-ones, they're gonna take a shot to kind of make you respect it, but the basis is obviously the run game, and I think even in the Kansas game last week, look, Kansas ran for 225 yards. Jason Bean got off running. Devin Neal. I think Oklahoma. I do think there's some cracks in there.
Yeah,
I do. I think their defense, and we've talked about this with Venables, where all of a sudden you even saw it against UCF. UCF ran for a ton of yards on them, 190 something. That sounds right. It's in there. I think you have to stay patient. I think the scary part to me is Oklahoma still lost the game when I believe they forced 2 turnovers, and Bean I think had 4 turnover worthy plays.
Yeah, it was ugly.
It was ugly, and they came out on the losing side. If this game gets ugly too, they're gonna have some issues.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah. So mentioned Ollie Gordon is obviously he's the hottest player in college football right now, man. He is absolutely on fire. That's going to be the big matchup for Oklahoma, is to stop that guy, because otherwise it's going to be a long day. And if you stop him, we mentioned before, Alan Bowman has really been meh this season. So Ollie Gordon really does carry that offense. And it's going to be interesting, man. He's a bigger running back, too. He's got a wicked dead leg, man. A wicked dead leg. I'm saying wicked now like you are. I hate this. But he's got a really good dead leg that, I've seen guys fall, break their ankles, honestly. For a bigger running back, you don't really see that too much. You usually see them run him over. Ollie Gordon, 6'1", 211, and he's juking guys out, man. I love watching this guy's tape, and I'm so excited that we get to talk about this guy for another year after this year, too. He's only a true sophomore, which is insane. Ultimately, Dalton, who wins the final Bedlam game for the foreseeable future?
Boy, there's just something about Oklahoma State backs and shaking guys, right?
Yeah.
This game is weird because
it always is.
Oh boy, Bedlam, isn't it? It's Dylan Gabriel is supposed to be the difference maker. He's supposed to be the difference between these two teams. I don't see, honestly, a ton of difference between the two of them outside of that quarterback. But maybe he's not. Maybe he's just not. Maybe he's a good quarterback, but he's not a difference maker. They need to establish his confidence early. The worst thing that happened to him was throwing that pick 6 on the first drive last week. I think it rattled his confidence. It rattled the coach's confidence. Jeff Lebby, you mentioned. I know it was raining and it was kind of sloppy and ugly, but it's very hard to believe that you've got almost any college quarterback, especially in an offense like that, only throw 19 passes in a game. It was raining. It wasn't that ugly out there. It wasn't Jets Giants. All right. It's one of these things where I go, okay, man. Now, especially on the road, you know how it can be over there in Oklahoma State.
Oh, dude, it's weird. Yeah, Stillwater gets weird.
It gets weird. It gets loud. It looks like on TV that the ground is shaking. To be honest with you, I'm gonna turn the Big 12 completely upside down this week.
Wow.
I'm gonna take the Cowboys. I think Ollie Gordon. I think he goes for another 150. And I think a big thing. I think this Oklahoma State secondary can keep them in the game. They're running hot lately. They've got 7 picks in the last 4 games. I think if you can find yourself 2 turnovers, I think you can absolutely pull this upset off, because I don't think the rest of these two teams, especially if Stutzman is out and Ollie Gordon's running against them without Stutzman, I think you have a major problem, big time. He can take any run 70 yards. He can shake your eyes out, and when he gets a crease, he is gone. And I mean gone. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wacky. I'm going to take Oklahoma State 38-35.
Wow. I love it, man. So you are basically saying Big 12 is out of the college football playoff now because Texas.
I'm calling it.
I love it.
I'm calling it. Every week, a couple of teams are going to get eliminated, and I'm calling out the Big 12 right now.
Big 12 is done, according to Dalton. I'm actually going to say Big 12 stays alive with those two teams. I got Oklahoma in this one, 33-27. I do think Oklahoma's run defense, good point by you, there has been cracks. But I still think they'll slow down Gordon just enough, and I just don't think Alan Bowman can win this game, man. If they slow down Gordon enough where he's below 100, which is something that's insane to say, like, oh, if you get him to 90 yards, like, because he's been above 100 in every single game besides the first 3 games of the year when he didn't get any carries. But I do think if they do that, I don't know if Alan Bowman could do enough in this game. And I do think Dylan Gabriel could do just enough to get by. So I think Oklahoma 33-27. I think Oklahoma wins this game and stays alive in the college football playoff hunt. Next game we're talking about, this one is going to be, if you like points, you better be tuning in for this game because I think it's the highest over-under of the week. 76 right now is the over-under for this game. Number 5, Washington at number 20, USC, 7:30 p.m. on ABC. The storyline, Dalton, is there's 2 teams in this game that are playing with fire. Washington won their first 4 games by an average of 33 points. Last 4 games, they won by 7 points. They beat Arizona State and Stanford by a combined 17 points. They were combined 55.5-point favorites in those games. Washington, though, still hasn't been burned, even though they're playing with fire. USC has been burned a couple times already. 4 of USC's last 5 games were one-possession games, and the only one that wasn't was when they got destroyed by Notre Dame, 48-20. USC is not fighting for a playoff spot anymore. Washington is, but USC can still make the Pac-12 championship game with a win right now. Right now, they're second right now in the Pac-12 in standings because they have a better conference record than Oregon. So USC could still make the Pac-12 championship game, so they still have a lot to play for right now. But what is the matchup, Dalton, that you're really excited to see in this game?
I want to see if Penix can regain the magic on the deep ball. The first 4 weeks of the season, he had a 96.2 deep passing grade. The last 4 weeks, it's a 74, which for deep balls is low. Okay, you expect, obviously most of them are going to be big time throws and all of that. Washington is. I think there's a couple of things happening here. I think they've gotten away a little bit from the play action game. Penix is also the best play action passer in the country, and I think they've gotten away from it a bit as they felt kind of, I don't want to say stressed out early in these games, but teams have put the shell on them. They're playing back, and they want Penix to work for it. Now, under 20 yards, he's still big time. He's accurate. He can read defenses, all that stuff. And deep ball, look, it can be volatile. It can, okay? But you've got a team right now that I think there are times that I've seen in the last few weeks with this offense where they're trying to force vertical shots, and they don't need to do that. Run the ball, throw the ball 15 and under, set it up, make people move up before you can don't just force it into 20-yard deep safeties, right? Too high coverages, all that stuff. The other thing, too, they're just not separating in man coverage. And that's part of it, too. I think they're used to, with Odunze and Polk and McMillan and these guys, when they get in man coverage, well, yeah, we can throw it over the top. Sure. But it doesn't always work. It's not a guarantee, right? You play teams with, Pac-12 secondaries. We've seen Arizona and Arizona State, and these teams keep themselves in games, right? I think they have to do a better job manufacturing big plays. Now, USC, they're in the bottom 20 in deep cover grade for the season, 46.8. They've allowed 9 deep touchdowns, most in the Power 5. We've talked about they're not the most fundamentally sound on defense, and it shows on the back end as well as the front, right? I think the run defense gets a lot of the spotlight. And I think running the ball could help Washington with this. I think Dylan Johnson, get him really rolling. I think he's a better back than people give him credit for. I think last week he only had 80, 85 yards somewhere in there. I think Washington's at their best when they're a little more multifaceted on offense. Run it with Johnson. Get under center and get the play action going. Make safeties move up. I already know Penix can make all the accurate throws from sideline to sideline, but they need to do a better job creating big plays instead of just chucking it up and hoping they happen, right? Penix can do that, but if you're going to just force them downfield, you're going to get safeties sitting back. You're going to get double coverage. You're going to just get balls. There's certain plays in right now that look forced, and I'd like to see them better manufacture their big plays.
Yeah, that's a great point. And, my matchup is kind of basic. It's pretty much last year's Heisman Trophy winner against this year's Heisman Trophy winner. Caleb Williams, or probably this year's Heisman Trophy. We'll see what happens for the rest of the season. But Caleb Williams leads the country since his true freshman season with a 93.3 grade. He's actually tied with Bryce Young for the best among FBS quarterbacks. He's also second in the country in passing yards this year with 2,660. Michael Penix Jr. leads the country in passing grade, also leads the country in passing yards. So the only quarterback in the country that has more passing yards than Caleb Williams this year is Michael Penix Jr. You're not going to get a better quarterback matchup probably all season than these two. Caleb Williams is going to go first overall probably in the NFL draft. Michael Penix Jr. is going to be maybe QB3 and definitely a first-round pick in the draft as well. You got 2 first-round quarterbacks in this one, man. I do think, though, and we'll get into the predictions in a second, one big matchup, and we mention it all the time how USC's run defense is weak, and it is. Don't get me wrong. Washington's is really bad as well. Washington right now, in terms of EPA allowed per rush, second worst in the Power 5 this year, behind Washington State. Marshawn Lloyd is one of the most underrated players in college football. USC does not use them enough, in my opinion. This is the game where I don't know if you want to get into a shootout with Washington, because I think Washington's secondary is actually pretty good and actually a little underrated. But if you can ride Marshawn Lloyd in this game against Washington's run defense, that might be the avenue for USC to win this game. I think Marshawn Lloyd has been, like I said, one of the most underrated players in college football, not even one of the most underrated running backs. I think he could be a huge factor in this game for USC at home. But ultimately, Dalton, who is coming out on top in what should be an absolute shootout?
I think you make a good point. We had it on the trivia the other day that I should have picked right, that Marshawn Lloyd is maybe the most efficient runner in the country, even if he doesn't get enough opportunity. And that's going to be a big part of it. I think both of these teams need to have some balance. You got some good backs in this game. Lloyd, Dylan Johnson, I think especially Washington's offensive line is an elite unit. I like Washington. Look, you're not going to avoid the shootout. You can run the ball you want. There's a reason the over/under 76, and you could argue should be higher. I think this game is going to be crazy. But I think Washington's defense in spots has come through for them. I think against Oregon it came through in big moments. I think which team was it? Arizona State. They beat 15-7.
Yes, Arizona State. Yeah.
And I know Arizona State's not great, but they got to be the friskiest 1-6 team I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Their defense has come through in spots. USC still, they just gave up 49 points to Cal, 48 points to Cal. I can't. I think they're capable. I think Caleb Williams the last 2 weeks has finally been better under pressure, at least not giving the ball away, somewhere around a 70 grade under pressure instead of a 30. This has a feel to me, and it's on the road, which is tough, but this has a feel to me of just Washington is a better team. I think they're similar, and I think Washington is better. I think their defense will come through enough. It's not going to be pretty. The numbers will not be pretty. You're playing Caleb Williams. And I think Penix finds it. I think he started to find it last week. He threw 4 touchdowns last week and had to work through it a little bit against Stanford. But I'm going to say Washington. Give me 49. Give me 49-39. The over is going to hit.
Wow, I love that.
The over is going to hit easy if I'm doing that math right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's like 88 points right there. Yeah, that's an easy over then. I actually think the under might hit in this one. I got 38-35. I got USC in this game. I think USC is going to come out on top in this game. I think USC, one of these games where everyone's counting them out, everyone's counting Caleb Williams out, and they're not going to beat Oregon, they're not going to beat Washington, they're not going to beat UCLA. They're going to win one of those games, and I think Washington might be the easiest, maybe UCLA, but Washington's one of the easier paths. I don't know if they could beat Oregon, but I think Washington, there is a path for USC in this game. I think Caleb Williams is playing a little pissed off right now. I think they're going to do it. I know I'm kind of basing this off vibes, which is not really something you want to be doing on an analytics show like this. But the vibes for me in this game just kind of Washington's playing with fire right now. They're playing down to a lot of really bad teams. Caleb, I know USC's doing the same thing. Don't get me wrong. But I think this game will come down to whoever has the ball last. I think USC's at home. I think Caleb Williams gets it done, man. So I got 38-35. I think USC comes out on top in what should be an absolute shootout, and I think Marshawn Lloyd is a big, big factor in this game. So that's why I got USC beating Washington. I actually had Washington winning this game a little bit earlier, and then I was like, I don't have any upsets in this one. Which one do I actually think will happen? I changed it to USC. So I think USC's winning 38-35. But the last game that we're talking about is maybe the best game of the day. There are definitely a lot of arguments, but the one I'm really excited about is number 14 LSU at number 8 Alabama, 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS. This is deja vu, Dalton. I was doing some research as to what the matchup was like last year and what it's like this year. So last year, these two teams played in Week 10. It's Week 10 this year. Last year, Alabama was 7-1. They're 7-1 this year. Last year, LSU was 6-2. They're 6-2 this year. LSU was eliminated from the playoff already last year. Alabama's still kind of holding on for this year. LSU can eliminate Alabama again from the college football playoff. And not only that, if LSU wins, they could kind of take control of the SEC West, although it is kind of weird because they have lost to Ole Miss already. But last year, the same thing was true, too. When LSU beat Alabama, there was kind of a three-way tie, chaotic tie at the top between LSU, Alabama, and Ole Miss. If LSU wins this game, there'll be a three-way tie again between LSU, Alabama, and Ole Miss. So it is really weird how similar the circumstances are in this game, with Alabama having the same record, LSU having the same record, same week they're playing. Ole Miss is still in the fight for the SEC West as well. It's very weird. It really does feel like deja vu for last year.
It does, but I'll tell you the difference for me. I think the stakes in this game are kind of weird too, because I think LSU, even with two losses, the two losses that they have, they're the one team with two losses that I don't think is out of the playoff race.
Yeah.
You talk about at Alabama, all right, and I don't think they have much in the way of like hard games in the regular season after this. But if they were to let's just say you were to win at Alabama and you were to find a way to beat Georgia in an SEC title game, let's just assume it's Georgia because we both picked them against Missouri.
Yeah.
How much weirdness would have to happen for a two-loss LSU to sneak in at number 4 if they run the table from here in?
Would a two-loss LSU, my question would be, would a two-loss LSU get in over a one-loss, let's say, Florida State? Probably, right? No, Florida State's got the head-to-head, though.
No, they got them head-to-head, but I think at this point, if you're talking about Florida State losing a game, who's it to? Miami or Florida or Louisville?
Yeah.
Because, okay, just take some of the one losses. So they beat Bama, take them out. Do they get in? How about this? Do they get in if they beat Georgia in the SEC title game over one-loss Georgia?
Probably, yeah. I'd probably say yeah.
Do they get in over a one-loss Michigan if Michigan loses to Ohio State?
Yeah, that means Ohio State probably was undefeated, though, right?
Correct. Ohio State will be number 1 at that point.
Okay, so then, yeah. Yeah, they probably would, yeah. I would get them. So they're out.
And then what do you need to happen in the Pac-12?
Yeah, and the Big 12
Just
could
madness?
be out. Big 12 is out. I think they get in over one loss, Texas or Oklahoma, probably. Right?
But definitely Oklahoma, I think.
Texas. Yeah, I think Texas, too.
If you've got wins on the ledger at Bama and against Georgia, especially an undefeated Georgia, you start talking. I think it's weird because it's never happened, but I think they're a two-loss team that's not out of it. The stakes in this is an elimination game. It both ways, not just for Bama.
Yeah,
because I think LSU, you've got a real case if some weird things happen. If, like, let's just say the board is as I have it here, and you have Oklahoma and Texas both losing. And maybe Washington keeps squeaking by, but they got to play Oregon again, right? If Oregon splits with Washington, I'm assuming that Washington's not going. Oregon still has to play USC themselves. There's a lot that could happen here, and I think LSU's got a lot in their own hands. I think this is fun because it's
the tinfoil hat's out right now. I love it. We got like the conspiracy theories. This is great.
Well, and then I just have no idea what the standards are for getting in the top 4 based on what we saw last night. I don't know what. I don't know if it's resume or who's hot or who's the best, or if Jaden Daniels wins a Heisman, will they just want a Heisman winner in the playoff?
Yeah.
Or I don't know what they're looking for. It's the one thing. Like I said, I'm cool with Ohio State at 1, but I have no idea how they got the rest of it.
No. Yeah, it's inconsistent for sure. Dalton, there is obviously a clear matchup in this game. Maybe the best matchup of the entire season. Is that the matchup you're going for your matchup to watch in this game?
You already know. I've been waiting for this for a month and a half. Yeah, you've got Jaden Daniels and the best offense in the country.
Yep.
99.9 deep passing grade. They just take shots like crazy.
It's on a 100 scale, by the way. 99.9 out of 100. It's not like a 200 scale. It's a 100 scale.
Yeah. Neighbors and Thomas both have a 99.9 deep receiving grade, coinciding with that. This offense is nuts. It's the one offense that, at least in the SEC, that really just outscored Missouri. I told you, Missouri has a top 10 to 12 offense, and LSU is one of the few offenses I would put above it. Jaden Daniels is such a weapon. I really think he's going to work his way into late first, early second round conversation. He's the best dual threat. He's the best dual threat in the country right now. And they're just a big play machine against Alabama, who we both believe is the best secondary in the country. Agreed. Right? Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Caleb Downs, elite players, the best deep cover grade in the country at an 85. Just two teams that are just so. This is the unstoppable force against the immovable object. Mm-hmm. It really is. I told you, I've been waiting for this for 2 months. I'm like, because you can just tell you have. I know Penix and USC and these other teams are explosive. There is, for as much talk as the Pac-12 gets, there is not a more explosive team in the country than LSU. It's really a shame that especially their defense has let them down, because this offense is good enough to win a national title. It is. I mean, they got outscored against Ole Miss. Was it 55-49, somewhere in there? I mean, Ole Miss took 53, 55 points to beat them. Florida State, LSU wasn't quite. They weren't this in the Florida State game. There's been some changes where after that game they got more vertical. This is a whole different team than you saw in Week 1. This is that Week 1 game against LSU. That was last year's LSU carrying over, and they've just found this formula, especially when Brian Thomas got going as the second option, and now and Daniels obviously being an elite runner. I don't know how Alabama can stop them, or you don't really stop them. You slow them down and hold them hopefully to 30. And if Nick Saban's not the guy who can find a way, I don't know who is. But this is maybe the best matchup of two units you're going to see all season.
It easily is, man. I mean, Jaden Daniels leads the country in overall grade, 92.3. He's tied with J.J. McCarthy for the highest. But McCarthy's played a way easier schedule than Daniels has. Neighbors leads the country in receiving yards. Brian Thomas Jr., the number 2 receiver for LSU, is tied for first in the country in receiving touchdowns. Their number 2 receiver has the most touchdown catches in the country this year. That's how ridiculous this offense is. And if Daniels wins this game, he is, in my opinion, the clear front runner for the Heisman Trophy. I don't think there's anyone even close to him, honestly, Dalton. If he wins this game, I don't care what Penix does against USC. I think Jaden Daniels is close enough right now. If he goes out there and has another great game against Alabama, I would say he's the clear front runner for me for the Heisman Trophy. I know you're kind of – what do you feel about that? Do you not think he'd be the front runner for you?
I don't think it's clear. I think Penix is solidly in that mix. And I think the way he's played the last 2 weeks, Bo Nix is still in that mix. I don't think it's clear. I had him second when we did this a couple weeks ago. I would probably still have him a close second for sure. If he wins this game, and he's elite in this game, like he has a Jaden Daniels. I think I've asked you this before. Do they include conference title in Heisman?
Yeah, they do.
I'd have to see that too.
Okay.
Or like if we saw like if we saw Penix lay an egg this week or something. I don't think it's like clear.
Okay.
I think he's clearly. I don't think you can make a top 3
without him.
I would even argue top 2 without Jaden Daniels.
Agreed.
I don't think so.
I think it'd be obvious. I think against Alabama, man, if he does this, that I'm like, all right, it's him.
Oh, if he does come out here and do some Joe Burrow 500 total yards and 5 touchdowns, and we're gonna have some serious arguments about it on Monday.
Yeah.
I gotta see it.
Okay.
That's fair. Murky because, like you said, these are 5 massive games, and you've got Penix and Daniels both now. They're playing huge games every week. This is going to be one of those jockeying type of races. Yeah. This is a fun Heisman race this year, man.
It is. Honestly, it is a very fun Heisman race. I actually put out a take yesterday, and we'll get into it in a little bit, but I think Bo Nix might end up winning the Heisman Trophy because I think they're going to beat Washington in the rematch. And I think that Pac-12 championship game might be for not only for the Pac-12 championship, that might be for the Heisman Trophy too. So
here's the question, and this is the argument I made for Shedeur when we did this, and now his team just totally let him down. Does it carry any weight to you that like Washington and Oregon's teams are so good, and LSU really, for the most part, there's a handful of other good players, and they had a hard time getting Harold Perkins going, but does it matter to you that Jaden Daniels has to carry more of this roster than Nix and even Penix kind of in the incubators a little bit?
Yeah, I think that's a good argument, but I would also say he has at least better receiving core than Oregon, at least. Washington is definitely a debate, but that one I would also put too is like, okay, he still has Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas and like all that. So that's why I think that's a good point. And honestly, it helps my case with Jaden Daniels if he does win this game. But yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I think it'll be close though. I think we'll get into the prediction in just a second, but I think that'll be close. Another matchup besides the secondary versus those receivers versus Jaden Daniels, Dalton, that will affect this passing game. You saw on the graphic right there, Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell have been the best edge duo, I think, in college football this year. 16 sacks, that is tied for second among all edge duos in the country. Turner, 6th among Power 5 edge defenders with a 21.9% pressure rate. Braswell is tied for 3rd among Power 5 edge defenders with 9 sacks this year. However, LSU, just looking at the offensive tackles for LSU, when you combine those 2 grades, they're the 2nd highest graded offensive tackle duo in the country, behind only Air Force, by the way. So you can make an argument LSU is the best tackle duo in college football. Will Campbell, a guy who I loved his true freshman tape last year, he's been incredible this year. He's probably, if you want an OT1 in 2025 for the NFL draft, it's probably Will Campbell right now, man. He has been phenomenal. And then Emory Jones, who was a true freshman last year as well, he's really stepped up. He was kind of meh as a true freshman, really has been stepping up as a sophomore and has played pretty well as well. So LSU has the highest graded tackle duo in the Power 5, and Alabama has the best edge duo in the country, man. So that'll be a really, really good matchup in addition to LSU's receivers against Alabama's secondary, and of course Jaden Daniels going against that defense as well.
Yeah, this is a hard one. This is a really hard one because there are so many good matchups across the board, and I wonder if the key isn't actually on the other side of the ball for as much as we're putting the spotlight here of LSU. The last 3 games has kind of sort of figured out some coverage issues, although it's a little tilted because they just played Army and you don't really even have to send a secondary out there against Army. I wonder if this is the fun part. This is the fun side of the ball, right? I wonder if the difference in the game, this for me is actually the hardest game to pick because I think there's strength on strength and then there's weakness on weakness. Yep. Alabama's offense kind of stops and starts a bit. They run the ball really well. Milroe with the big, does he lead the country in big time throw rate?
He does, yeah.
Or he's at least in the top 3 somewhere if he leads it.
Yeah, he leads it, yeah.
Big arm, wants to hold the ball. Can he hold the ball against Harold Perkins? Is he coming to get him? Is he going to spy him? I think there's a lot of mystery on the other side of the ball. And if LSU's secondary starts kind of sort of to have things figured out, can Milroe manufacture points? Enough points. They are not going to hold LSU to less than 30 points. I don't, even against Bama, I don't see a scenario where LSU scores under 30 points. Is the suspense in this game the other side of the ball? And Alabama, we've seen them be better on offense. They've been good, but they've been elite on defense and good, sometimes even just good enough on offense. 24 on Arkansas, 24 on Ole Miss. What they score on A&M? 28? 27?
I believe something like that. Yeah, I'll look it up real quick.
They have not hit 30 points real often this year. This is a hard game to pick. I just think, and then there's some schematic things too where we mentioned, I think we had another trivia a couple weeks ago, Malik Neighbors is also the best slot receiver in the country. Mm-hmm. And if there's a spot you want to get Bama, just to put your thumb in, they allow almost 75% of passes to slot receivers to be completed, 7th highest in the country. There's some tweaking here that can go. I think between Daniels scrambling, evening out the pass rush, and Neighbors in the slot, and this is a tight one. What do you think of? Let's put it this way. What do you think Bama's offense is capable of doing? Because I think they're going to have to be as good as they've been all year.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to be as well. Although I do think LSU's defense it's like you said, it's the unstoppable force against the immovable object when LSU has the ball, and it's the stoppable force against the movable object and the other side of the ball. So that's the interesting matchup in this game. I do think Jalen Moreau, I've really, really been impressed by him these last few weeks. I think he's really figured it out since being benched. I think they're going to be able to take advantage deep on LSU and make some plays like Ole Miss did, honestly, in that game as well. I think Alabama, that's ultimately, I'll go first on my prediction. I think Alabama wins 31-30. I think it's going to be a great game again. I think LSU hits 30 points, but just barely, because I do think that Alabama secondary and the Alabama pass rush will create some problems. Some problems. Not all problems for LSU, but some problems. I think Alabama gets revenge on them. It's in Tuscaloosa as well. I think Alabama wins by 1 point and keeps their playoff hopes alive.
Man, this one's hard. This is the hardest game.
It is the hardest
because you also have the factor of, since Saban's been at Alabama, he's only lost to the same team 2 years in a row twice. And I believe it's been 9 or 10 years since someone did. I believe it was Ole Miss that did it 9 or 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. I think it's as hard a game as we've had to pick all year. I'm actually going to take it. I kind of want my 2-loss narrative to keep going. I think Jaden Daniels. I've been riding this, and I really think if he plays really well in this game, he could find himself in first round conversations. I think Bama's secondary can obviously play with them, but there's been moments, second half against Arkansas, first half against Tennessee. I think Alabama's going to need to play a complete game, and I can't really think of a game this year where they've done it. There's just this stop and start thing with Bama, and the problem is if you go 2-3 drives with 3 and outs or short drives, you don't want Jaden Daniels to have the ball in his hands. No. They really need to run the ball well, and I think LSU can compete with them in the run game. I'm gonna talk myself. I'm gonna talk myself into LSU here.
All right.
I think Bama. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 38-34.
Okay.
LSU, because you mentioned 31, and even I might be generous with 34. I think we need to see another level of offense from Bama. And I don't know that 9 weeks into it we're going to get that. Right. I'll take the Tigers, and I honestly am literally making this decision as you see me thinking about it. This is a hard one. You've got strength on strength, you got week on week, and I think Jaden Daniels solidifies himself maybe as a first round prospect in this game.
I love it, dude. I love it. Well, that's what we got for our predictions for what should be an insane Week 10. So let us know down in the comments below what you guys think will happen in Week 10. What playoff contenders, if any, will go down in this game. Obviously, LSU-Alabama one, definitely one of them will go down. But let us know in the comments below what you think about our picks, and make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Make sure you hit the like button on the video as well. Stay tuned for next week. We should have a very, very fun Monday episode. Don't know quite what we'll be doing yet. We'll definitely do trivia. Dalton has to come back from his 0 for 5 in trivia. But other than that, we have a loaded Week 11 preview show as well. I think right now there's 6 games between ranked teams, or 5 games between ranked teams in Week 12. Loaded slate as well. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our preview for that as well. But for Dalton Wasserman, for producer Eli back there, I'm Max Chadwick. Enjoy this Saturday of college football because it should be special.